Teachers Association of Ghana begins an indefinite nationwide strike today. Their main concern, government had not paid their book and research allowance for the 2013-2014 academic year. And so in a statement to its branches across the country, the association instructed its members to lay down their tools and withdraw all services immediately. POTAG in a statement stated that they have no choice than to resort to this action in order to fight for their rights and defend their conditions of service. The question is strike the only option for POTAG, considering it's yielded very little in the past? How long have they been engaging government on this issue? What did their last meeting with the NLC and their employers yield at all? To help us find answers to some of these is Adam Koku, who is Hope POTAG chapter chairman. Thank you very much for joining us here, Adam.
Thank you for the opportunity to express our views on the issue. Absolutely.
So Adam, you're on strike, but the last time you threatened to embark on such an action. Adam, just before we get into our conversation, could you lower the volume on your TV set? I think I'm having very terrible feedback from you. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm fantastic. Now, the last time POTAG threatened to strike, you entered a meeting with the NLC and your employers. What became of that meeting?
The government has stood to its guns not to pay the book and research allowance. Their position is they are setting up a research fund. Now, if you take a look at the complaints that we make relating to the book and research allowance, you realize that it is for an academic year that began last year, which has about 4 to 5 weeks to end. Now, if government was interested in even implementing that research fund, they should have gone ahead, put it in place, and made it possible for polytechnic lecturers to have access to it. The entire academic year is almost ended. That fund is not in place. Staff have gone ahead, used their own resources, done research, and bought books, taught lessons throughout the first semester. Second semester is almost ending, and all we hear is a research fund is to be set up. And that is worrying, considering what we are asking for is a negotiated condition of service, which they have agreed to and have been paying for the past 14 years. I don't know what has happened that they don't want to pay.
Adam, the last we heard of these talks with government and the Labour Commission, government has said that it needed some documents from POTAG as far as the book and research allowances were concerned. Documents that indeed it was part of the conditions of service for POTAG. And you provided those documents. Why do you think government did a 360 and said, if we are staying our grounds now?
It is very surprising to us because government cannot, at this moment, put out a defense that they did not know that we deserve that allowance. It was just a feet-dragging attempt by government to ensure that the semester ends, and then in effect, the academic year has ended. So that when you come asking for it, you say, oh, the academic year has ended, let's look at next year. And we are not ready for that. We've had meetings with them, and we see that government simply is not interested in paying.
But is strike the only option for you?
It's unfortunate that in all of our interactions with government, my experience in the past 15 years has been that it is only strike that gets us results. Talking just is a total waste of precious time. Look at the situation we are talking about. 2013 academic year school began, and our first letter requesting for this amount was far back January 6th. We sent another January January 6th, we sent another one, and January 17th, we sent another one in February, we sent another one in March. That should tell you we are interested in talking and hoping that government will listen and do what they have to do from their part so that we can resolve the issue. But government is not interested.
Right. Adam, I'm going to have you hold to the line. We've been joined over the telephone also by Ahmed Jinapo. Ahmed Jinapo is an educationist. Thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you, my sister. How are you doing?
I'm very well. What are your interpretations to this back and forth between POTAG and its employers together with the NLC?
To your cherished viewers, as a matter of fact, I was very surprised to hear a strike being embarked upon by POTAG. And I'm a little bit biased when it comes to this issue because, as you are aware, I teach at the university, and we are members of, or members who enjoy this book and research allowance. But I think what we're being told, because at a point in time, UTAG also wanted to go on strike. And I might say, I speak as an individual, but not for UTAG. But we're told that we should hold on because there are some negotiations going on. So I do not know where the negotiations have gotten to. And if you listen to, I don't know whether it's the president of POTAG who is on the other line, you could more or less sense his lamentation. But you see, my sister, this whole issue of the book and research allowance is something that I think has not been handled well in terms of the reforms that have been proposed by government. Because if you look at what is going on, government says it wants to start something called the National Research Fund. And that fund is supposed to be something that individuals can source. But you see, the book and research allowance, listening to POTAG, my understanding is that it's part of a package that more or less is supposed to be something that goes to do with the conditions of service of lecturers at the polytechnic or at the university level. So if you say you are now setting up a fund, then there's a little bit of a misconnection. That notwithstanding, we are talking of two allowances. We are talking of book allowance and research allowance. So if you want to fuse the two into a research fund, then definitely you are kicking one out. But as I said, I'm a little bit biased. But moving forward, I would wish that the Minister for Education or whoever is responsible could, as a matter of urgency, because I've said this a number of times, could, as a matter of urgency, call POTAG, call the various stakeholders, look at ways and means that at least we can come to a consensus. Because my understanding is that maybe government thinks that there are some people who abuse this allowance of funds, and legitimately so. But government will also have to understand that, look, there are some lecturers who spend more money in publishing and all these kind of things, and at the end of the day, they don't even receive as much as they spend. So I think government will have to sit down with the various stakeholders, i.e., the vice chancellors, POTAG, UTAG, and people who are involved to fashion out a mechanism to address this issue of abuse. I'll give you a typical example. Let me just go very quickly. Look, at the university, right? If you want to go for a presentation outside the country, it's the university that funds you. But before you go for that presentation, what you do is that you submit your paper to your department. Your department has a review board who will look at it. Then after approval, it goes to the faculty, then to the vice chancellor or the registrar before it's up. So there's some kind of a peer review mechanism to check abuse. So if we are talking of a fund of this sort, why don't we leave it to the various polytechnics and universities to administer it, instead of giving it to government with its associated bureaucracy and all this kind of thing? So I would wish, and I would pray that POTAG and government should sit together to resolve this issue. But government will have to, one way or the other, exhibit leadership, but try as much as possible to get this issue resolved.
Dr. Jinapo, Adam Koku is the whole chairman or president for POTAG, and Adam, Doc has raised a very important point. I was going to come to, but the point is, it isn't just POTAG that is receiving this book and research allowance. It means that if there are talks are also between itself and UTAG. Why did POTAG decide to take this step?
We wrote a letter to National Labour Commission on 15th April. Just around the same time, we issued the ultimatum that if government does not settle our book and research allowance, we would have no choice than to embark on an industrial action. Interestingly, the Labour Commission refused to respond to that letter. Like the previous letters, a litany of letters which have been written, they refused. The moment POTAG also issued a press statement and said they would also embark on a strike, then they called POTAG and started to talk with POTAG. That already in itself shows a bias towards polytechnic education, and we don't have anything to do with it. As far as we are concerned, we have a condition of service, you agreed to, you signed to it, you've been paying. If one moment you think at a point that you want to make changes, it is for you to engage us, to talk about it, to come to a compromise as to how to get it going. But don't just go around the country, mention things you intend to do. Don't do them and then expect that because you mentioned you were going to do it, typically we must toe that line. In a year that we were waiting for the funds, it didn't come, we used our money to carry out the research and teach students. It is not what you find in a textbook typically that will be what we will teach on a day-to-day basis. And I was sharing with colleagues that when it comes to many of the courses we teach, it's practical based. Now, I would have to go to industry, see what's going on there, come back to the classroom and tell them, no, things have changed. For instance, now, we know if you want employment, typically, you would have to go through employment agencies, which never used to exist before. Now, how would someone sitting in the classroom looking through textbooks get to realize that there are employment agencies, and these are the number of them that exist? A lecturer would have to go around, find out these things, educate the students, so when they go out, they know what to do. You don't see that. You don't do that in the classroom just by sitting there. You need funds.
So now that the government is also saying we'll stay our ground and not bring back the book and research allowance, how long does POTAG think is going to stay away from its work? Mind you, your employer could withhold your salaries.
Well, we are strictly working by our rules of engagement. We know the labor law, and we are adhering to it. We notified Labour Commission we're going to go on strike. We gave them the number of days notice, and we are on strike. If the necessary steps are taken from their end to resolve this matter, definitely. We cannot be on strike and negotiate. If they want to stop this, they come to the table, we start to negotiate and get to move on. But if they stay their grounds and say they will sit back there, we know we are in our rights. Every time government has chosen not to listen and we have followed the law has always caught up with government. This is not the first time. The last time government we dragged government to court.
I'm going to say thank you to both of you. Thank you very much, Edem and Dr. Jinapo. I've been speaking with a whole chapter of POTAG's president, Edem Koku, as well as Dr. Jinapo, who is an educationist. Now, today